Hey, beloved, Quantum Health Boss here. I don't know if you heard about the mitochondria, but the mitochondria is not even on the cellular level. It goes way deeper than that. The best supplement that's out there on the market has to be blue. If you don't have this in your arsenal, if you don't have this supplement in your first aid kit, it might be too late. But I really want you to see what I know and how blue can help you, right? It's not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, prevent any disease. And the comments being sane are definitely not of my own. But let's start off with the promo video here. Let me just pull it up onto the screen. So yeah, blue. Blue is something that you definitely should have in your arsenal in the first aid kit. I'm telling you right now, it may save a life. So let's get into the video with Dr. Bennett. Dr. Bennett is going to enlighten us about his product.
I came to an obscure chemical, and then it was called methylene blue. I remember from medical school days saying, "Oh, it's one question in the test. What is it good for? It's only good for this one condition called methemoglobinemia, which is a condition where your blood cells, you don't have enough oxygen, you kind of suffocate to death. You give this, and miracle happens, and you're cured." And I said, "Wow, this is a pretty cool chemical. Let me take a look at it." So as I looked in it more in terms of the antiviral effect of it, antibacterial effect of it, I kept getting more and more studies. So it took me a few months, 6 months, 8 months of over 800 studies. I read all these studies. All these things are FDA approved by themselves. If you combine it, what happens? Would it work? I sent it off to a pharmaceutical manufacturing in New York. They made it. They sent it to me. So he tries it. I try it. What do you think? I don't know. I didn't feel anything. I said the same thing. I didn't really feel anything. I feel good, but I can't say what that is. The following week, COVID hit. Office got shut down. Here we are. We have this medicine that we could have used or doing something, and it's just sitting there. Called up my friends. Hey, do you have any COVID patients? We sure do. Everyone's being rejected from the emergency rooms. There's no treatment. They're just letting them go. They say we can't do anything. So what do we do? Here you go. Try this. Here you go. Try this. 10, 20, 30, 100% efficacy, no side effect. They had to prove with a PCR test they were positive. 10 days after, you had to show PCR you were negative. Negative. Everybody, 100%, no side effects. Then we said, there's something there. 100, 200, 400 patients, 100% efficacy, no side effect. 10 days, all cured. So we went to Mexico City. They were dying by the thousands. So we got accepted to do a study in 2 government hospitals, FDA study in 2 government hospitals in Mexico City. So we go there and we start the trial. They give us a room, medical room, and says, here's your room, you can start your trial. For the first week, not one person showed up. Not one person, even though they told everybody, hey, come try this new study, it's gonna be good, it's gonna be COVID, it'll be fantastic. Then, because their head doctor, the chief was the doctor, told them, hey, you gotta go get the treatment. This is what it is. They came in, got a treatment. In 2 days, they went back to work. 2 days, okay? The third day, there was a line out the freaking door around the hospital, right? With everybody that was sick coming in. And by that time, I had to come up with a certain different types of formulations. One was an IV. So I came up with IV. Our study is actually sublingual. Okay, so you put it under your tongue, you wear a light for an hour, you were healed. Okay? So we proved it. All right. So one of the doctors got admitted to the emergency from the ER, got admitted to the ICU. She was very, very sick. They said, okay, what can you do for her? I said, I can try the IV if you want. You know, they said, okay, go ahead, try it. But our study was for the oral, sublingual. Don't worry, she's a very important person. You got to treat her. Go to the ICU. She's sick. She's lying in bed. We do the IV. Say, okay, the IV protocol, you need 2 days of IV. Then the rest of the 10 days, you're going to do sublingual. Okay, no problem. We go downstairs. The following day, she's the first person in line out of the ICU. I'm looking at her going, what the hell are you doing here? She's going, after you gave me that IV, I felt so good. I wanted to get out. I signed myself AMA. I'm going to come downstairs. I'm going to get an IV. So she came in. She was getting the IV, and then she said, you know, does your medicine do anything else? I said, no, it's just an antiviral. Well, you know, I had this headache for my meningioma. I'm standing there going, you have a meningioma? She goes, yeah, I've had this headache for 8 years because of my meningioma. Yesterday, it disappeared. So our study showed all 3 DNA profiles of the virus depleted to 0 in 3 days. 100% efficacy, 0 side effects, okay? He gets sick. I start him on the IV protocol right away to make sure he's negative. 2 days later, he comes back, he says, Doc, there's something wrong. Oh my God, you're gonna be the first side effect. Thank God, because now I really think it's a real medicine, right? You have to have some kind of side effect. It has to be, right? He goes, well, you know, I'm throwing guys like they're paperweights. I've never done that before. Okay, what's going on? Is it a steroid? I'm very afraid, because if it is, they're going to disqualify me, and I'm not going to be able to get my $1 million purse. I said, I swear to you, it's not a steroid. It has no properties. It goes in, does what it does, and comes out. Okay? He goes, no, I think there's something up. I said, no, I promise you, you're not going to be. They're not going to throw you up. He comes back the day later. He goes, I forgot to tell you. I said, oh God, now what? When I usually have to wait in between rounds, it's usually a minute and a half. And I usually take a minute and a half to be able to get myself back up and going around. Now it's only 20 or 30 seconds. You sure it's not a steroid? I said, I promise you it's not a steroid. It is not. You're not going to be disqualified. He comes back a day later with another complaint. I'm going, oh my God, now what? Well, he says, well, you know, when I go in a ring, I can hear my coaches tell me what to do. Okay? But ever since you started me on this medicine, I can't hear them. My focus is strictly on the guy that I want to kill and destroy, but nothing else. And my reflexes are a little faster. And I said, all right, there's something to this guy. He's not just stating something. There's something going on. So I got so excited that we were able to prove all these things. It's incredible. So that's how I got into Methylene Blue and just nose dive into everything about Methylene Blue. So for the past 3 years, we have over 3,000 patients that have done all kinds of versions of Methylene Blue, and we have tons of data regarding the side effects, the good, the bad, the ugly about Methylene Blue, okay? So bear with me. I hope I don't bore some of you, but let's go over some of the stuff, right? What is methylene blue? It's a dye. It was invented by a chemist so it can dye things blue, right? Then a doctor was using the dye in his laboratory, Dr. Elric. Okay, so the German scientist is called Henrik Karl, and the doctor was Dr. Paul Edermann and Paul Elric in 1891. This is a 140-year-old medication, 140 years old. All right. So they said, hey, we can actually, when he saw the destruction of the bacteria in the blood cells, because he was just staining them to see what's happening, he found out, hey, it's a pretty good antibiotic. And he found out that it's excellent against malaria, which was rampant back then. Okay? And you could kill malaria in 3 days. 3 days. It took a few years, but Matilda Brooks found out that it's a great antidote against carbon monoxide poisoning and cyanide poisoning. Fantastic. All right? And of course, it's a pre-medicated. Back in the 50s, we have one of the first very good back then antipsychotics was chlorpromazine. Back then, it was the only thing they had, and it worked really well against psychosis. Excellent. I'm going to stick to the things that's important to us. All right? How we're going to use it, but why? Some of you want to know why. Why does it work the way it does? It is a partial liposomal agent, which means it goes in the mitochondrial matrix. What does that mean? As you were told, we have a few thousand of these little mitochondria. Okay? They are the manufacturers of your gasoline, ATP. That's your gasoline. Without those, you die. So that's where the fuel is being made, where your entire body utilizes. Okay? And you see that's right there where the blue square is pointing to, rectangle? That is inside the mitochondria. It's called mitochondrial matrix and cisternae. That cisternae has these other manufacturing facilities. Complex 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. That is how your ATP is being produced. Okay? That's where the fuel comes from. Whether you like it or not, everything turns into that. Just try to make the fuel from there. So see the dark brown stuff? It's called the matrices. That's where all the good stuff, that's where your glycolytic cycle is. That's where the sugar gets broken down and gets into a small compound. Electrons are and it makes into ATP in the matrices, okay? There's a gap between the first and the second layer of cells. That's where the electrons are, hydrogen, okay? Now, this is a more detailed version of that cell wall, where it goes. You've heard of NAD. Almost everybody heard of NAD, right? A lot of people get NAD IVs. Okay? Why? So when you get a cold, what happens after the first day of cold? You get tired. You get tired very quickly for a few days, up to 7 days. Why? Because as soon as you get caught with a virus, the cell tries to protect itself. It protects itself by upregulating NAD to make ATP, so ATP can protect your cells and can have enough energy for DNA repair. Okay? So it's very important for NAD to be upregulated. It means a hell of a lot more production of NAD to make ATP. Without NAD, there's no ATP. Okay? At the very last stages there. All right? So NAD goes up. If NAD goes up and it's used, what happens to all the NAD? It gets broken down. If all the NAD is used up, what happens to your energy level? It goes down because it's upregulating to get your ATP. But as we age, above 35, 40, the recycling process for NAD is broken down. That's why we get tired earlier as we age. The recycling process of NAD. If you don't have that working well, NAD continues to stay down, you get tired. If you get NAD infusion, you bounce right back up because the recycling process isn't done very well. How do you fix that? Sometimes you can fix it by intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting has been shown in studies to increase the recycling process, rebuilding of the recycling process, because that's very, very important, okay? So here comes methylene blue. It says, hey, NAD, give me that electron. I'm going to take it away from you. NAD and FAD are robbed from their electrons. Okay? Is just a little pass from one chemical to another chemical. Okay? Once I pass this to the other chemical, I get used up. Okay? Then I go to another process where I have to recycle myself to get built up again. Okay? And methylene blue comes in, says, hey, don't get used up. I'll take this little doohickey from you. I'll go to all the way to the end. I won't go from one cycle to the other, because in order to make ATP, you have to go from 1, 2, 3 to 4. If any one of those are broken, or don't work, or work intermittently, or less than what they should, you get something called mitochondrial disease, mitochondrial dysfunction. So here comes methylene blue. Comes and robs NAD and FAD of electrons, says, hey man, don't worry about it. I'm going to take your electron, bypass the entire manufacturing process, and go straight to cytochrome C and make ATP. Don't worry, chill, relax. I'll do all the work. Then, methylene blue can't get broken down by your body. Your liver cannot break it down. It stays either leucomethylene blue or methylene blue, and that's it. And it is such an awesome chemical. You've just heard a word called redox. It's very important, okay? This is the auto-recycler. Because of the pH, it is such an amazing chemical. It auto-recycles, which means at certain processes, it donates, and in another section, it accepts. So it sits there. Thank you very much. Here you go. Thank you very much. Here you go. Without the requirement of ATP or any other enzyme to be able to do what it's doing. It's an amazing process. It's an amazing chemical. It requires nothing. But you have to be able to get it from your mouth to the blood, to the cell, to the mitochondria. That's where the expertise comes in, and the way this chemical was built by us. Okay? That's the reason why we're using the gold, silver, and the copper. And you can't just use any gold, silver, and copper, because if you do, if it's too small, the silver clump in the cell and kill the cell. Your liver starts breaking down. Okay? Same thing with gold. Specific size, specific amount. They all do different things. And that's why it does what it does. Okay? So methylene blue is an amazing product. That's how it creates ATP. That's how your cells get energy. So imagine, you're an athlete, and this is legal, by the way. USADA, which is a governing body for athletes, have approved it. You're taking this product. You can run farther, without use of oxygen. Okay? It produces ATP without oxygen. Okay? That's what's amazing about this. Okay? So imagine holding your breath longer underwater, being able to get a pick-me-up in the morning. It goes in, not a steroid, comes right out. Absolutely, it doesn't touch any of your cells, except it does what it does. Then your body is smart. Your body methylates it. The way your body gets rid of it is methylating it, turns into leucomethylene blue, and then all of a sudden it leaves your body. Regular methylene blue, 3 to 5 hours half-life. Means it only lasts 3 to 5 hours, 50% pop concentration. Ours, 22 to 24 hours. Okay? Imagine that.
I think that was very powerful from Dr. Bennett, and that was just part one. But what did we learn in part one is that methylene blue, it's an enzyme, 3 different enzymes, and it goes into the mitochondria, doesn't really get used up by the cell. Yeah, and you know, the key to health is a properly functioning mitochondria, and you can basically pick up the hydrogen, uh, which has the electricity, and put it right into the engine. And yeah, I think that's very, very, very powerful. Let's go to number 2.
Methylene blue has been used in India for the past 40 years. Okay? When I published my study, their health minister of India came to our office, said, hey, our efficacy is only 30 to 40%. How the heck are you getting 100%? I showed them red light. He said, oh yeah, by the way, we just tell people, take the methylene blue, go outside, go in the sun. We know that if they go in the sun, they get better. It helps. Well, 660 nanometer light. That's what the difference is, okay? Has other properties too, but I'll explain to you why 660 is so important, okay? So it's been shown with all these, in studies, not by me, but other studies, of what it can do. It's excellent against chemotherapy, helps you against the side effects. Immunosuppressants, helps you protect you against their effects, okay? And India told me they can get rid of fibroids. They actually have gotten rid of fibrous lung. It took 9 months, a year. We don't have that in the United States. We can't get rid of fibrosis. Once you got a fibrous lung, you're done, okay? But they can. And our version does the same thing as theirs does. This is a complicated, I just want to prove to you that this is how the inflammatory process starts, and this is where methylene blue comes in and protects you. Okay? This is all the fevers and all the they're called inflammasomes. They're gene expressions that come in and start all the process of getting the inflammatory processes. So you have inflammation, you have swelling, and all that. Okay? Now, because this chemical is so diverse, because it does so many things, right now it's being looked at by many, many labs across the world. They want to be the first one to find a mechanism of actions for these other things. I don't have a mechanism of action for many things, because many processes of this because they don't know. They know it works. They've proven it works, but they're still trying to figure that out. So I'm putting up the ones that we know of, the ones that we have proof that actually work. So when we were doing the study, we found out that when anybody came in with a cough, no matter how much IV we gave them, no matter how much sublingual we gave them, they didn't get better. Not one of them. So we had to come up with a different version called the nebulize. As soon as they gave them a nebulization where they could inhale it into their lungs, they bounced right back. Took them a couple of days, but they bounced right back. So we had to come up with a nebulized version. Now imagine that, God forbid, you get a blood clot anywhere, right? Most commonly in the brain, okay? And then they give you a clot buster, okay? And then all of a sudden, wow, it's a miracle. The blood starts going back into the brain. You actually cause more problems, more death. Why? I'm trying to explain to you so you understand what I'm coming up with. It's very complicated here, if you can see. The center blue thing, see that center blue thing? To the right of it, nitrous oxide, right? So you see hypoxanthine? Hypoxanthine, right there it says xanthine, hypoxanthine, and then ROS with a red star. Reactive oxygen species. They are your enemy. They have been shown to cause cancer. They can change chemicals from good to bad. They can change your DNA. They can actually destroy your DNA if they're in high concentrations. Again, I mentioned to you yesterday, we were made perfect. We have a perfect system to counteract that. It's called glutathione, superoxide dismutase. Okay? Those two chemicals are your antidote. Unfortunately, we eat, we are around things that decrease those. We don't have enough of those. So ROS is increase in cells, causes something called apoptosis. Once there's too much concentration of that in your cells, you die. Your cells die, not you, but your cells die. And then that cell, besides dying, become some other means, and I'll show you what that means. And they can cause cancer, all right? So it's very important to have this taken care of. So imagine you have two twins. One comes to my talk, the other one's somewhere else, and both of them have a stroke, okay? One's taking methylene blue, the other one isn't, right? The one that has methylene blue, look at what it does. It protects them against this ROS species, okay? So reperfusion, if reperfusion occurs, they're protected. He's not going to get destroyed. Secondly, so if you have lack of blood to your cells, right? Lack of oxygen, lack of nutrition, cells die. What do they need? What does that oxygen supply and nutrition supply? Ability to make ATP. Your ATP drops, cell dies. Imagine you have methylene blue in there already. Cell has an extra 10 to 12 hours to live because methylene blue is there to protect it. It keeps making ATP. No matter, there's no nutrition, no oxygen, methylene blue keeps going, makes ATP over and over and over again. So you have hours instead of minutes to get to the emergency room with a blood clot, whether it be in your chest, PE, pulmonary embolism, a stroke, or deep vein thrombosis, anything that has to do with a blood clot. If you're taking methylene blue, you're protected for hours. I want to show you how the reperfusion is helped with methylene blue. So senescent cells are cells that are too old. They get Alzheimer's. They don't know what to do with themselves. They don't know whether to die. They can't continue to heal themselves. They just stick around. And what they do is it causes more problems for you. Why? Because they release SASP. All you have to know is those are inflammatory processes, these senescent cells. Okay? They're bad for you. And methylene blue helps your cells to prevent from going into senescent cells. It's been shown. Okay? Why is this important? This is what methylene blue comes up when you manufacture it. It's 5. So I want to show you what the name of the chemicals are, what the enzymes are that work. Superoxide dismutase and all the before ischemia. So there was, if methylene blue is administered before ischemia, you get a lot of protection. What if you give it after? So post-ischemic methylene blue infusion, see that? Production competing with molecular oxygen at the iron sulfur center of xanthine oxidase, okay? Acting as a willing electron acceptor for the last shuttling of electrons. So let's take a look at that. That's where that xanthine comes in. So as soon as xanthine, because it's a donor, and it causes more nitric oxide, see that? And it causes ROS, reactive oxygen species. Because anytime you have a equation in the mitochondria, you have to be able to equalize it. And the way you do it is with electrons. If you have too much, if you're making something, and this is a byproduct, if it doesn't get used up very quickly, it wants to find something to bind to, and usually reacts with other chemicals, and it causes reactive oxygen species. Hits oxygen, oxygen becomes singlet oxygen instead of 2 oxygen. O2 becomes O1, and the electrons, and then you have that reacting with other chemicals in your body, in the cytosol of the mitochondria, okay? So it's proven to help. Methylene seems to protect brain by reversing accelerated in vitro senescent cells, and that's what we talk about, senescent cells, right? It loves neurons. Methylene blue loves neurons, and it concentrates in the brain. That's why it gives you focus. That's why it gives you attention. Okay? It's extremely well. It's been studied quite a bit about that. All the effects are produced by methylene blue on the mitochondrial respiration and antioxidant effects are useful tools to reduce the tissue reactivation and invasives of foreign substances. So how does this work? Again, it all goes down to ATP production, all right? So here you have a manufacturer that's making gas, right? If all the gas is being utilized by your cells because it's being invaded and it can't keep up with the production, what happens? Cells invade. They have the ability to invade because you can't protect yourself, right? That's why if we had a wall around the US, that's our protection, right? But what if there are so many invaders coming in and we don't have enough guys to protect the walls in forms of ATP energy? Someone's going to get through. That's what happens. So methylene blue can actually protect you from invasiveness of cells by giving your cells enough ATP for cellular protection. So why is methylene blue so good? How does it work? Okay, has to do with what? Why am I using this? I'm activating methylene blue in my blood. That's what this is for. Why the wrist? Because we've tried the carotids, too cumbersome, people didn't like it. We tried the femoral, again, too complicated, it's very, very uncomfortable. So we thought, hey, the arm, nope, didn't work. But you have an artery and vein that go here, all the way down, circle, do a U-turn, go right back up. So you get a 4-pass right at the wrist. And it's the closest of the artery and veins in your body. And this red light, has enough power to joule, because it has to do with joules and radiation. Look, it goes right through your skin. That's how powerful it is, okay? Besides doing methylene blue, the red light does many other things. Many other, especially nitric oxide, as a signaler for many, many things. Many, many processes in your body. So, you look at this. So why is there so many peaks? What does this mean? This is the absorption spectrum for methylene blue. Okay? When you shine light on it, you want to see which one it absorbs the most. You see all those little peaks, tiny peaks? Those are all contaminants. The azure A, azure B, azure C, thionin. The most one is around 660, 670. That's methylene blue. Okay? Now, why is that important? So when you have methylene blue and you shine light on it, see those rings on methylene blue? What is light? It's just electrons, right? I can feel the heat. How the heck does it heat my hand? I can feel the heat because electrons are hitting my hand. Electrons have properties. The properties, one of them is heat when it hits your body. So it hits that chemical, it absorbs it like a battery, like a capacitor, and it holds it and circulates. It just goes around and around and around. It holds it until it gets rid of it. How does it get rid of it? By hitting something it likes. It loves lipid-based envelope viruses. What is that? So this is not proven by me. This is proven by studies in other countries, not by me. Okay? It does do HIV. It does do hepatitis and herpes. It has been done in Mexico. I consult with many firms, many doctors, and we have protocols in place that do these, okay? Excellent against staph, strep, MRSA, and Lyme. It's fantastic against Lyme and MRSA. Strep throat, in a matter of 10 minutes, gone. Okay? It's amazing. Amazing what it does, okay? Malaria, of course, everyone knew because that's what it was invented for, right? Now, there's something there called MAOI, MAO inhibitor. What the heck is that? Remember the fighter? His concentration, reflexes. So this is a monoamine oxidase inhibitor. If you inhibit monoamine oxidase is actually an enzyme that stops all the neurotransmission in your brain. All it means that whenever I want to do something, okay, there is a enzyme, there's a chemical that goes from one place to another, from one nerve to another. Then if you don't stop it, it will continue and continue and continue. You can get seizures. It won't stop. So we have an enzyme that stops it right away. It's called monoamine oxidase inhibitor. So it inhibits that reproduction, right? So this stops that. So what happens? Your serotonins go up. What are serotonins? They're neurotransmitters. Neurotransmitters are for focus, for memory, okay? For reflexes. It's all about nerves. And that's what it's good for. Okay? Works beautifully. All right? And I told you about the anti-inflammatory effects of it. Anti-inflammatory effects of like what? MS. Common dosages. This is where everyone's going to get a little bit different, okay? My study was done. Now remember, I had to do a study that I wanted to make sure everyone in the world can take it, which means no matter what medication you were on, no matter what ailment you had, you could take this, okay? All studies that were done on methylene blue where the side effects occur were done at 120 milligrams and above. Those studies were done 600, 1200, 3600 milligrams. And they had such side effects, such huge side effects. So I had to come up with something that had no interaction with anything. So I chose 5 milligrams. The reason I chose 5 is because the silver, the gold enhanced the ability for methylene blue to work tremendously. Multiple times, folds of 50 to 60. It's so incredible how just 5 milligrams works just as effective as 1,200 milligrams of pure methylene blue, okay? But they're still doing tests. This is what they recommend. If you go to a hospital, if you have methylhemoglobinemia, this is what they do. They give you 60 to 120 milligrams 3 times a day. But that is for methylhemoglobinemia, okay? So right now, they're doing 1 to 2 milligrams per kilogram. We're saying an average of 70 kilogram person, that's 140 grams, right? 140 milligrams. So the side effect profile occurs at concentrations of about, let's say, 7 per kilogram. 7 times 70 is what? Close to 500. That's where it starts, 500, not 5. That's pure methylene blue, okay? Our concentrations are much lower. That's why anyone can take it. And we'll go over that why it's that important. So what are some of the applications of biohacking? How can you make it better? It's considered a nootropic, okay? Look at that. Cognitive functions, executive functions, attention, and memory. There's a study done. They gave one dose of methylene blue. 7% better with one dose. We don't even know what methylene blue they were using. That might have been the one that had only 25% efficacy. But still, 7% increase in correct answers. Lots of studies on Alzheimer's, both positive and negative. Parkinson's, psoriasis, multiple sclerosis. It's also being used by a lot of sports people to enhance their performance. So again, red light, right? For biohacking, okay, activates. So you don't have to have methylene blue to feel better with this watch, because this does other things. Like I said, nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is an excellent stimulator. Not only does it increase so let's say you're wearing this. Yesterday we're talking about nicotinamide, right? Niacin, take this, opens up the arteries. Niacin opens up the arteries. But niacin does something different. Increases HDL. What's HDL? The good cholesterol. Why? It's a bus. Goes around, picks up all the small and bad cholesterols, takes it to your liver and repackages it. That's what's important. That's what this can do. Without methylene blue. The methylene blue on top of it, well, it's fantastic.
I think that's pretty powerful what Dr. Bennett said. And I'm telling you right now, that red light watch that he has is beautiful and it does wonders. But this is an old video and just launched is the AO mask. How the AL mask is better than the 660 band? Well, the 660 band basically it targets the arteries that go through the hand, and your blood passes through here 3 times every minute. So the 660 band is useful, but the mask has 1082 infrared light. Why is that important? Well, that light can go through skull, through deep surfaces. So if you have the blue already in your system, you can basically put the mask on and penetrate right into the brain. Um, you know, not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, but if you have any type of neurological disorders that you want to have some therapy with, I would definitely try out the AO mask in the blue. You can just go to my website at aocheck.com. Or if you want to connect more, just go to quantumhealthboss.com. But Methylene Blue, there's a lot of studies and there's a lot of informations out there. But as Dr. Bennett said, if you're looking at um, clinical studies or contradictions or side effects with Methylene Blue, make sure that you're understanding those ones are not our product. We went through countless studies without any side effects. So that's Dr. Bennett. And yeah, if you don't have blue in your quiver, in your first aid kit, maybe